Beneath the calm steel-gray waters of the Baltic Sea, something extraordinary is unfolding. To the casual observer, it might look like routine dredging, giant vessels scooping sand and silt from the seabed with industrial precision. But in reality, Germany and Denmark are undertaking one of the most ambitious infrastructure projects in European history. With each ton of sand lifted from the sea, the future of continental transport is being reshaped. The world's attention often drifts toward flashier marvels, skyscrapers piercing skylines, suspension bridges stretching across straits. But here, quietly and steadily, engineers are carving out a new frontier. It is called the Fehmarn Belt Fixed Link, a project so vast, so transformative, that it is already being compared to the Channel Tunnel. When completed, it will be nothing less than the longest immersed road and rail tunnel in the world, a 17.6-kilometer submerged passageway binding northern Europe to its central heart with unprecedented speed and efficiency.
Now, it's to the Baltic Sea where construction of the world's longest underwater rail and road tunnel is underway. The 18-kilometre passageway, due to be completed in 2029, will link Denmark and Germany. The €10 billion project crosses a stretch of the Baltic Sea known as the Fehmarn Belt and will have 2 double-lane motorways and 2 electrified rail tracks.
For decades, crossing the Fehmarn Belt between Rødbyhavn in Denmark and Puttgarden in Germany meant relying on ferries. Known as the Vogelfluchtlinie, or bird flight line, this crossing has been the lifeline of passengers and freight since the 1960s. The 45-minute journey by boat connected Scandinavia to Central Europe. But in an age of high-speed trains, carbon-neutral targets, and time-sensitive cargo, ferries have become an anachronism. Weather delays, seasonal bottlenecks, and outdated infrastructure left the corridor struggling to keep pace with the demands of modern logistics. The solution, as conceived by Danish and German planners, was not simply an upgrade, it was a reimagining of connectivity itself. The Fehmarn Belt Fixed Link officially broke ground in 2020, following years of legal disputes, environmental studies, and painstaking diplomatic negotiation. Costing over €7 billion, funded primarily by Denmark with substantial EU support, the tunnel is expected to open by 2029. But this is not simply a passage under the sea. It is a cornerstone of the Trans-European Transport Network, or TEN-T, a vast web designed to integrate the continent from Helsinki to Palermo. In this system, the Fehmarn Belt is a missing puzzle piece, a bottleneck waiting to be unlocked, a direct corridor where goods and passengers will move seamlessly from Scandinavia into the heart of Europe.
Why a tunnel and not a bridge? At first glance, a bridge might seem more visible, even more iconic, but the Baltic's shallow waters, whipped by strong winds and choppy waves, make such a span vulnerable. An immersed tunnel offers safety, year-round reliability, and minimal disruption to shipping lanes. It is also more environmentally considerate, preserving migration routes for birds and marine life, while reducing the visual footprint of infrastructure on the seascape. For Germany and Denmark, this is not just a matter of engineering. It's about balancing ambition with responsibility. Yet before concrete could be laid or tunnel sections lowered into place, the seabed itself had to be transformed. This is where the colossal dredging operation began. More than 19 million cubic meters of sand, clay, and glacial soil, enough to fill thousands of Olympic swimming pools, must be removed to carve a trench 18 kilometers long, 60 meters wide, and up to 16 meters deep. Specialized vessels, some of the largest dredgers in the world, scrape, suck, and lift the seabed with millimeter accuracy, guided by sonar and GPS. Trailing suction hopper dredgers vacuum sediment like giant undersea harvesters, while grab dredgers claw through stubborn glacial deposits left behind by the Ice Age. The comparison often made is to the Panama Canal. While smaller in overall volume, The Fehmarn dredging still represents one of Europe's largest marine excavation projects. What makes it particularly remarkable is not only the sheer amount of material being shifted, but what is being done with it. Rather than discarding it offshore, engineers are repurposing the sand and clay to build new land around tunnel portals, strengthen coastlines, and create wildlife habitats. On both sides of the belt, new coastal landscapes are taking shape, green buffers that will one day serve as both protection and recreation zones. It is a case study in circular construction. The earth lifted from one place becomes the foundation of another. But the engineering marvel doesn't stop at dredging. The tunnel itself is being built using the immersed tube method, a system that turns construction into something akin to assembling giant Lego pieces beneath the sea. In a purpose-built factory stretching over a kilometer in Denmark, massive concrete elements are being cast. Each measures around 217 meters in length, weighs as much as a battleship, and is reinforced with thousands of tons of steel. Once completed, these elements will be floated out like enormous vessels, carefully lowered into the seabed trench and joined with millimeter precision. In total, 89 of these mammoth sections will line up to form the finished tunnel. To grasp the scale, consider this. The tunnel will accommodate a 4-lane motorway and a double-track railway. Cars will traverse the link in 10 minutes. Trains will do it in 7. What once took nearly an hour by ferry, subject to storms and delays, will become a seamless connection, immune to weather and congestion. For freight companies, this shift is revolutionary. Cargo will flow directly across the Baltic without the wait for ferries, cutting costs, emissions, and transit times. For passengers, the promise is equally profound. Weekend trips, cultural exchanges, and cross-border tourism will all flourish. The economic implications ripple far beyond Denmark and Germany. The Fehmarn Belt sits on the Scandinavian-Mediterranean corridor, a spine of trade stretching across Europe. By removing its bottleneck, the link strengthens supply chains from Nordic countries into Central Europe and further south into Italy. It is expected to enhance competitiveness, attract investment, and fuel growth along the route. Coastal towns such as Puttgarden and Rødbyhavn are already planning for a new era, transforming from ferry hubs into modern gateways for tourism and commerce. There is also the climate equation. Current ferry traffic emits nearly 2 million tons of CO2 annually. By shifting freight to rail and enabling faster passenger journeys, the tunnel is projected to significantly reduce emissions, aligning with EU climate goals. It symbolizes a shift in infrastructure thinking. Speed and efficiency are no longer the only priorities. Sustainability is equally paramount. Of course, the project has faced criticism. Environmental groups worry about disturbances to Baltic wildlife, particularly the harbor porpoise, as well as the potential release of pollutants buried in sediments. Others question the staggering price tag, arguing it could take decades before tolls and benefits outweigh costs. Yet history suggests that megaprojects of this scale, from the Øresund Bridge to the Channel Tunnel, often redefine regions in ways that far exceed initial projections. What makes the Fehmarn Belt project so fascinating is not just its ambition, but its quietness. While headlines trumpet skyscrapers in Asia or bridges in the Middle East, this tunnel progresses largely unnoticed, beneath the Baltic surface, carried forward by thousands of workers, engineers, divers, planners, and scientists. It is a reminder that transformative infrastructure does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers, reshaping landscapes in silence. In the long view, this tunnel may serve as a model. Other regions, from Asia's island chains to the Bering Strait, face similar barriers. What Denmark and Germany are demonstrating is that with political will, technological precision, and environmental care,
Even the most daunting geographic divides can be conquered. The Fehmarn Belt fixed link might not carry the glamour of a record-breaking skyscraper, but it may very well carry the future of cross-border transport. In the end, the project is more than a tunnel. It is a vision of what Europe can be: interconnected, sustainable, and forward-looking. Each scoop of sand dredged from the seabed is not just earth removed, it is progress made. A quiet promise that distance will no longer divide, but unite. When the first trains and cars rush through its echoing chambers in 2029, the Fehmarn Belt will not only connect Denmark and Germany, it will connect the future to the present, turning an ambitious dream into a lasting reality.